So the Supreme Court will now have to decide whether or not they will hear a magazine ban case. So let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think it's a Second Amendment violation for a state to restrict magazines based on their capacity, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I also want to give a shout out to one of the main sponsors of the channel, and that is USCCA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, I highly recommend you take a look into USCCA, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. Also, I want to let you know that this content is powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition, so head on over to joinfpc.org to help support the Second Amendment cause. Thank you again, Firearms Policy Coalition, for supporting this channel. So the case we're going to be talking about in this video is ANJRPC versus Bruck/Grewal. It's a case we've talked about in the past, and is a challenge to the state of New Jersey's magazine capacity restrictions, essentially restricting individuals from being able to possess magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, similar to what other states have as well, like the state of California. So some quick background on this case for those of you who do not know what this all involves. In June of 2018, New Jersey passed Assembly Bill 2761, which banned the possession of firearms magazines with a capacity to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition. The New Jersey law required owners to modify their magazines that they currently possess to permanently reduce their capacity, to destroy these magazines, or to turn them over to law enforcement officials. This law was then challenged, and in August of 2018, a district court denied ANJRPC's motion for a preliminary injunction, applying what is a failed two-step analysis. This type of analysis is used by other courts, and it claims that the core of the Second Amendment pertains only to the need to defend oneself in the home, and that any exercise of gun rights outside of that core within the home is less important and can essentially be infringed upon. And ultimately, the district court upheld the New Jersey law using intermediate scrutiny, which is a lower bar and easier bar for a government entity like the state of New Jersey to pass. ANJRPC then appealed, but a divided panel in the Third Circuit upheld the district court's decision, once again using intermediate scrutiny. The case was then returned back down to the district court, where a motion for summary judgment was granted to the state of New Jersey. That motion for summary judgment, which was granted, was then appealed up to the Third Circuit, and once again, a panel in the Third Circuit upheld what the district court did there. ANJRPC then sought a rehearing before the Third Circuit en banc panel, which is a larger panel of judges, but ultimately that en banc panel review was denied, and it was shot down by an 8-6 vote. And then after that denial of a rehearing, the plaintiffs here, ANJRPC, are seeking review from the Supreme Court, and they filed a writ of certiorari, which is essentially asking the Supreme Court to review this issue. Now, in the writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court, there are two main questions that ANJRPC asks the Supreme Court to review. The first question is whether a blanket, retrospective, and confiscatory law prohibiting ordinary law-abiding citizens from possessing magazines in common use violates the Second Amendment. The second question is whether a law dispossessing citizens without compensation of property that was lawfully acquired and long possessed without incident violates the Takings Clause. So those are the two main questions that were presented to the Supreme Court. Now I have two main updates for you guys on this case. The first one is, and the really big one is, that this case has now been distributed for conference on September 27th of 2021, which means that this will go to the Supreme Court, and they will have to decide whether or not they are going to review this magazine ban case or not. And the second main update is that the plaintiffs here, ANJRPC, have filed their reply in response to what the state of New Jersey is arguing. And again, this is a paper that is going to go to the Supreme Court and help them determine whether or not they are going to review this case. Now, some of you may be asking yourself at this point, what does it mean for a case to be distributed to the Supreme Court for them to review? And that's a really good question. Essentially, what this means is that all the papers, the writ of certiorari, are going to go to the Supreme Court, their clerks. They're going to review this case and determine whether or not they're going to grant cert, which means that they are going to grant review of this issue, whether or not they are going to deny review. They can also hold the case until a determination in another case, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit, which is the Corlett case. Or they can also redistribute this case for a subsequent conference if they don't want to address it at this point. So there are a few options that the Supreme Court has. Now, in deciding whether or not they're going to review this case, what's really important is the reply that was filed by plaintiffs in response to what the state of New Jersey is arguing. So I'm going to run you guys real quick through some of the arguments that were made by plaintiffs in their reply. So here are some quotes coming directly from the reply. In the reply, the plaintiffs state that this court should grant certiorari and make clear that the states may neither ban nor confiscate property that the Constitution entitles the people to keep. At a bare minimum, this court should hold this petition until it disposes of New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin/Corlett. So first, they're saying that the Supreme Court should grant cert in this case because it's an important case and it goes to those types of arms that individuals should be able to keep and bear under the Second Amendment. And at the very least, they're saying, if you don't want to address this right now, hold the case until you decide the Corlett case, which is a case the Supreme Court has granted review in, and it deals with the state of New York's concealed carry permit scheme. Now, when it comes to specifically addressing some of the arguments that the state of New Jersey put forward in their response to why the Supreme Court should not take up this case, plaintiffs argue that the state is thus left putting all of its eggs in the basket, that the circuits are not presently divided on this question, that question being a ban on magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. But a circuit split is hardly the only criterion for granting certiorari, as New Jersey well knows. Conflicts with this court's cases, such as Heller, is a well-settled ground for review and has twice justified review in the Second Amendment context alone. And this court has no hard and fast rule against granting certiorari to resolve questions it has previously declined to resolve, even repeatedly and recently. Moreover, the state seriously understates the degree of division in the lower courts. More than a dozen judges have decried the position embraced by the decisions below as flatly inconsistent with the court's precedent. That no two of these many jurists have been impaneled together until the Ninth Circuit panel recently on Bonta, they're talking about the Duncan case, cannot be outcome determinative. And even more jurists have taken issues with the watered down form of scrutiny the Third Circuit applied to uphold New Jersey's ban. They're talking about the failed use of an analysis being tiered scrutiny and the use of intermediate scrutiny when looking at this whole Second Amendment context, which Heller said is inappropriate. The state does not dispute that the questions presented are exceptionally important. Granting review not only would afford the court the opportunity to restore to the citizens of New Jersey and the handful of other states with similar restrictions their constitutional right to keep and bear arms that are commonly possessed for lawful purposes, but would give the court an opportunity to ensure the lower courts are properly applying Heller and McDonald. So they're saying just because there's not a heavy circuit split is not determinative of why the Supreme Court should reject cert or deny cert in this case. In fact, the Supreme Court grants review all the time without heavy circuit splits, and so that itself is not determinative, but the state of New Jersey is relying heavily in their argument on that fact. Now, the reason why it's important that this case was distributed for conference on September 27th is because there are two other Second Amendment cases that were also distributed for conference on that same date. Those cases being the Russell v. New Jersey case and the Young v. Hawaii case. Russell involves a challenge to the New Jersey concealed carry permit scheme, requiring a substantial justification for someone to be issued a permit, similar to the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Corlett case that the Supreme Court has already granted review on. So that Russell case has been distributed for conference on the same date. And then you also have the Young case, which deals with the state of Hawaii's open carry permit scheme. Again, that case has also been distributed for the same date and for the same conference. So on that date, September 27th, you will have three really big Second Amendment cases that are going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will have to decide what they're going to do with these cases. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you guys like this video and like support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. It signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos in this type of two-way news, and then it pushes it to more people. So thank you to everybody who's liked, commented, and subscribed. Thank you to people like RitoBug who commented on the last video, allow me to ... fuel the rhythm. So thank you to everybody who's commented on these videos. You might get your comment featured if it's funny enough or if it sticks out to me. So thank you to everybody who's commented. Thank you to OG followers as well, like Fern and Uncle Mike. I see you guys in the comment section all the time supporting the channel. Thank you so much for doing that. And for all of you new subscribers, comment down below that you're a new subscriber if you've recently subscribed, and I'll make sure I comment back to you. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this is built by Armed Scholars and it's nationally maintained by Armed Scholars.